Name something that gets passed around.
A joint.
A joint.
Now, streaming live on the Marijuana Agenda.
Oh, gnarly. What are you people? On dope?
It's time for Toker Talk Radio.
Hey, this is great, man.
The voice of the Marijuana Nation.
Marijuana is listed as a Schedule 1 drug. That is absurd.
Call in now at 650-LEGAL-MJ. That's 650-534-2565.
What's to keep somebody from getting all potted up on weed and then getting behind the wheel?
Hey, man. Am I driving okay?
Toker Talk Radio is your chance to make your voice heard in the Marijuana Nation.
They're walking on their pants with their cap on backwards, listen to Enema Man and Snoopy Snoopy Poop Dog.
Send that message with clarity that good people don't smoke marijuana.
Now let's get to Toking and Talking with your host, Russ Belville.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. Time for Toker Talk Radio, and I got a toke, man. This has been a hell of a premiere day. Oh, yeah. Hope you like the new setup here. Beautiful Mount Hood in the background. Looking out from my mansion up in the West Hills of Portland. Delta 9 Studios has magically transported into the West Hills. It's just amazing. And you'll notice that the sky is permanently dusk. So, yeah, we got the green screen going. It's a lot of fun. A lot of work was put into this. And I got to say right off the bat, huge thanks to Matt Lee out there. You may have known him from the Hotbox podcast, also writes for Stuff Stoners Like. Huge thanks to Matt Lee, who did a lot of production on these audio elements that you're hearing. Some of the new promos, some of the new jingles and such. Came over here to Delta 9 and spent the weekend, and we just had a cram session as far as putting audio together. It was amazing, the two of us working here, and I'm sure we'll have more of his help in the future. Thanks so much, Matt. It was amazing. Glad a lot of you are right back here at mjagenda.com. I've left some notes out at radicalruss.com on my old YouTube channel. Fans of the old Russ Belville show, trying to bring them all back in, but we're starting anew. We're just, I've just had it with a lot of things, frankly, but I wanted to start fresh with a brand new system and a brand new platform so I can finally get a handle on the audience and get a handle on the statistics and the distribution and everything that's going on. And I've finally gotten a platform that makes that possible out at libsyn.com. So thanks to them as well. The mjagenda.com domain is live, and we've got a whole bunch of folks in our new IRC chat room provided by Kiwi IRC. So those old YouTube chatters that were complaining about that awful YouTube interface, now you got the good chat. Some folks have been calling for a pop-up. We'll get that fixed as soon as I can. Looking out at the chat room, Jackie Newberry asking, what are the options to access the show? TuneIn Radio, other apps. When I watch on iPhone, I can't do other tasks and have to remain on screen. Yeah, you'll be able to get all that stuff. This show will be podcast out through iTunes and TuneIn and Stitcher and iHeartRadio and all those regular outlets. Just as soon as we get this show recorded and posted, I'll be able to post those addresses. Since we haven't had a show yet, I can't submit anything yet. So as soon as I get that done, you all will be the first to know. There will also be a MJ Agenda app. That's right. The Marijuana Agenda app will be coming to iPhone, Android, BlackBerry, and Windows Phone. So, Jackie, that should take care of it for you. Once we get that iPhone app out for you, everything should be fine. Also, some format changes you may have noticed. The first hour is going to be much more buttoned up, much more business-like. There'll be more pre-recorded segments because the way the Marijuana Agenda works is that in that first hour, I'm including two mini podcasts, a first half hour and a second half hour mini podcast that are then going to be distributed through all those other outlets. For example, we'll make the mini podcast for Northwest Cannabis Chronicle that we did. That goes out to MJBA, and then they distribute that as their own little mini podcast. This exposes the Marijuana Agenda to a greater audience. Their folks come listen to the full podcast, and then they hear more about different areas. We get business people that are going to learn about hemp. We get recreational people going to learn about medical. We get religious ganja people that are going to learn about the science and so forth. So that's my goal, is to bring everyone together One plant, one people, one fight, one love. That's our tagline. It's all about getting past this tribalism in the marijuana movement, getting past this luxury we've had to be a medical cannabis person or be a recreational person or be a hempster. We don't have that luxury anymore under a hostile administration. We've all got to hang together, or we most assuredly will hang separately, as Benjamin Franklin once said. So that's the marijuana agenda, bringing us all together, understanding the breadth and the diversity of this issue as we move forward, from states as friendly as my home here in Oregon to states as hostile as my birthplace in Idaho. We're going to talk all about that, all the different aspects. Go to our website at mjagenda.com and look at the About page. It's right there at the top. There's a link for it. That'll give you the full schedule so you'll know which segments are happening on which days. We're running a 4-week rotation. So if you've got a favorite segment, you'll hear it at least every 4 weeks in the second half hour or every 2 weeks in the first half hour. Then, of course, this hour, Toker Talk Radio, is going to stay pretty much the way it is. This is where the live stuff happens. We take your calls and check out the chat room. We'll be right back after this.
You're listening to the Marijuana Agenda with Russ Belville. You're listening to the Marijuana Agenda with Russ Belville.
Looking for the 420 friendliest way to visit beautiful legal Potland, Oregon?
I'm Lori Duckworth, inviting you to come stay with us at Delta 9 House and Studios.
You get your own private room with queen bed and access to our high-speed Wi-Fi, premium entertainment system, and more.
We'll even cook you breakfast. Look us up on Facebook at Delta 9 House.
That's facebook.com/Delta9House. Delta 9 House is booked through Airbnb and licensed by the City of Portland.
It's time for cannabis facts about Alzheimer's from Robert Platshorn's thesilvertour.org. This message is supported by our donors and Hemp Inc., a public company poised to lead America's hemp revolution at hempinc.com. A new Florida study in the journal Molecular and Cellular Neuroscience found that cannabis promotes the growth of healthy new brain tissue. It can slow the effects of Alzheimer's and may in fact be able to halt it entirely. A long-term study by Ohio State University's Professor Gary Wenk concludes that people who regularly use marijuana get Alzheimer's at a much lower rate than others. This was Cannabis Facts from thesilvertour.org, an educational nonprofit supported by our donors and Hemp Inc., a public company poised to lead America's hemp revolution at hempinc.com.
I'm Russ Belville with the Marijuana Agenda. Join me every 2 weeks for Cannabis Q&A with Dr. Mitch Earlywine from the Burning Issues podcast on cannabisradio.com. Learn more at mjagenda.com/about.
Tjena, jag heter David, p.k.a. Dirtball. Vi ska röka hela tiden, alla år.
It's time for Toker Talk Radio, the voice of the marijuana nation. Call in now at 650-LEGAL-MJ.
All right, welcome back to Toker Talk Radio. Radical Russ hanging out here at Delta 9 Studios in beautiful legal Potland, Oregon, taking a look at some of the latest news stories, and there's some interesting ones out there. One that caught my eye is a survey of popular music, and the authors of this study are trying to discern which music has the most drug references. Which music has the most drug references in American music. And of course, we all know it's got to be rap music, right? It's got to be rap. Always smoking, talking about blunts and J's. Got to be rap music, right? Wrong. That is not the case. The actual, that's right, not the case. The actual genre that has the most drug references is country music. Yes, country music. Unbelievable. So in the study, they took a look and found that 1.6% of country songs contain a mention of drugs, and that jazz and pop were not far behind. The one that came in last out of the 8 genres that they took a look at was rap. Yes, rap music had the fewest mentions of drugs out of the 8 that were studied, with country music being on top. That's almost the opposite, I think, of what most people would have predicted. Now, they did find that when you looked at individual groups, on the other hand, when you looked at their references to drugs among individual groups, then rap artists are the ones that take the top spot. Cottonmouth Kings, unsurprisingly, take the title with 440 drug references that they were able to count. 440. Not 420, you'd think, but 440. And they were looking for weed, cocaine, ecstasy, acid, heroin, meth, and pills. And for the top 5 referencers of each of those 8 drugs, so there are 40 possible categories here, 31 of the 40 were rap or hip-hop groups. And had not only strong references for weed and cocaine, but with acid as well. That seems something you wouldn't think a rap group would reference very much. But when it came to weed, Cottonmouth Kings had 344 references, and then coming in behind were The Game, Cypress Hill, Bone Thugs and Harmony, and Redman. In cocaine, 2 short leads with 85 references, followed by Lil Wayne, Eminem, Jay-Z, and The Game. Ecstasy was referenced most by Tyga with 72 references, Bone Thugs and Harmony. And then we get the rock group, Queens of the Stone Age, referencing ecstasy, followed by Danny Brown and Cedric Gervais. Acid was most referenced by a group called Cloud Dead, followed by Scout Niblet, Deep Puddle Dynamics, Aesop Rock, and Eminem. Heroin was most referenced by Kent, followed by Kaiser's Orchestra, Lars Winterback, Insane Clown Posse, and The Game. Meth was most referenced by Method Man, followed by Wu-Tang Clan, Eminem, I Set My Friends on Fire, and Insane Clown Posse. And finally, pills, referenced most by Eminem, followed by Fauve, The Game, Van Morrison, and Lil White. And heroin was the one category where rappers did not dominate. Also, they found that popular music, the drug references didn't really happen until the 1960s. Not surprising. Not a lot of marijuana songs out of the 50s or 40s, at least the ones that were hitting the pop charts. We did have artists all the way going back to the turn of the 20th century, Louis Armstrong and others, who were referencing drugs. Oftentimes they were speaking in code. The biggest spike in drug references in music happened in the 1990s, but since then, the drug references peaked in the 2000s at around 6%. Now they've dropped to around 2%. Weed was the most referenced drug, over 30% of the total for drug references. It was the most referenced drug in 6 genres and in the top 2 for all. And cocaine was the most referenced drug for only folk music. And weed and cocaine together make up more than half of all the drug references. You can find out more about this survey at addictions.com. Quite interesting. Now, other news that we wanted to bring to you, coming out of the U.S. Congress, the $1 trillion omnibus spending bill includes the Rohrabacher-Farr Amendment, which now is the Rohrabacher-Blumenauer Amendment. So, according to The Cannabist, the congressional spending bill would protect industrial hemp and state-based medical marijuana. This was the act that was forbidding the Department of Justice from spending any money going after the states that were enumerated as medical marijuana states. There's another amendment that is called the McClintock-Polis Amendment, and the McClintock-Polis Amendment would do the same for the legal marijuana states. It would be a states' rights move for the legal marijuana states. Of course, this is going to face a more pitched battle in the House trying to get this one through because it does deal with legal marijuana. It's surprising, though. It's really frustrating because when we look at the polls, we look at the opinion of the American people, there's overwhelming supermajorities that say the federal government should leave the states alone. The federal government should just let the states set the marijuana policies in this country. And I'm not just talking about the people that support marijuana legalization. Even those that are against marijuana legalization say, let the states figure it out. They might not want it for their state, but they're fine with other states doing it. We had Ted Cruz on the campaign trail saying, if that's what the state of Colorado wants to do, then that's up to the state of Colorado. Even the Idaho Senate, which in 2013 voted that nobody, no how, no way is ever, never, ever going to use marijuana. It's always going to be illegal in Idaho. Even that group of legislators voted against another bill to tell the federal government that it needs to go enforce marijuana laws in neighboring Washington state and down in Colorado. So Idaho lawmakers, some of the most cannabiphobic people on the planet, people that hate marijuana in all of its forms, still would not call on the federal government to bust people in the legal states. So the states' rights aspect of this, the support for this being an issue for the states to solve, is strong among the people. Now, there is a pushback. We're starting to push back on this theme coming from the people at Project Sam and coming from others that oppose marijuana legalization. They know the states' rights argument is strong. So they are trying to say that marijuana use can't be treated as a state-by-state issue because the effects of one state legalizing inevitably spill out into the other states nearby. Like Kansas will say, look, we don't want it legal, but when Colorado legalized it, all this weed came across our borders. We need to make sure there's a consistent federal regulation because when one state allows this liberty, it spills over into the nearby states. There's just one problem for Kevin Sabet in trying to get people to adopt this talking point. It's the exact talking point the gun control lobby uses against the states that have more liberal gun laws. Of course, Chicago has terrible problems with guns, even though Illinois has strong gun laws, because nearby Indiana gives all this gun liberty to its citizens, and it inevitably spills over our borders. Now, that's a subject that we could debate one way or the other, but it's tough to sell to conservatives the idea that we've got to go over into Colorado and start trampling over its state's right to legalize marijuana, when that's the same principle that liberals want to use to trample all over the state of Kansas for its gun laws, for the guns spilling over to Colorado, or for California wanting to stop guns from Arizona, or for New Jersey wanting to stop guns from Virginia or wherever. So that's a really tough game for them to play. It also would tie into the principle of environmental regulations, that we can't just have one state having an environmental regulation that allows them to pollute because those results inevitably spill over. That would be the counter on the liberal side. How can you liberals support these laws that say one state can't pollute because it affects another state when you'll allow that state to pollute their youth with marijuana? The marijuana issue as a states' rights issue is difficult for both sides to have to deal with, to reconcile and maintain any sort of consistency with their values, with their principles. To me, it seems clear. The federal government, there does need to be a federal standard on marijuana, and that standard should be, it's not illegal. It's not controlled. It's not on the scheduled substances list. If states want to schedule it, if states want to criminalize it, they can try, they can have that law. But this needs to be something where there isn't even a federal argument. The federal government, in my estimation, was never given the enumerated power to ban cultivation of hemp.
What are you people? On dope?
Well, not quite, but let's get to it. Because that sound means that it's 4:20 here at Delta 9 Studios. That means it's time for us to take our union-mandated safety break. You know how the unions like to mandate things. Also, make sure you check out the website for Delta 9 if you'd like to stay out here. We've got a spot for you, and it's cannabis-friendly. Visit facebook.com/Delta9House.
The Marijuana Agenda. Kevin Sabet's boogeyman since 2012.
You have offended my family, and you have offended Sharpington.
Yes, might have gotten away with it, too. If it wasn't for these blasted kids and their dog.
At Herbie's Cannabis Seeds, we pride ourselves on bringing you the best quality seeds from the world's most respected cannabis seed producers, all at the lowest online prices. You can find Herbie's Seeds at herbiesheadshop.com. All cannabis seeds are sold as souvenirs and as a means of preserving cannabis genetics. Herbie's Seeds in no way intends to condone, promote, or incite the use of illegal or controlled substances. We strongly urge all prospective customers to check their national laws prior to placing an order. Herbie's Seeds at herbiesheadshop.com. Proud sponsors of the Marijuana Agenda with Russ Belville.
This is Cannabis Facts from Robert Platshorn's thesilvertour.org, supported by our donors and Hemp Inc., poised to lead America's hemp revolution at hempinc.com. In 1937, the second most prescribed medicine, marijuana, was banned. It wasn't about marijuana. The paper, oil, and chemical industries lobbied to end hemp farming. No longer labor-intensive, an acre of hemp produced more quality paper than 4 acres of trees. Plastics and fibers could be produced from a plant. Hemp can even produce 10 times the energy of today's ethanol. As marijuana prohibition ends, many states now allow farmers to again grow hemp. This was Cannabis Facts from thesilvertour.org, an educational nonprofit supported by our donors and Hemp Inc., a public company poised to process America's hemp crop at hempinc.com.
I'm Russ Belville from the Marijuana Agenda. Join me every 4 weeks for Cannabis Sports Medicine from the Gridiron Cannabis Coalition. Learn more at mjagenda.com/about.
I have a package here for Radical Rick. Is there a Radical Rick here? How about a Rick Russ? Any Rick Russ? Somebody named Freddie Barack has sent him a package. Anybody? What is that? Sounds like a skunk. It's time for Toker Talk Radio, the voice of the marijuana nation. Call in now at 650-LEGAL-MJ.
Welcome back, everybody. 23 after the hour here at Delta 9 Studios. And taking a look through the news and checking out our chat room. We're now on Kiwi IRC chat, and you can register your own username and password there if you like. You don't have to. You can join with any old name you like, but if you want to secure it and have your own guaranteed username with a password, you can do that. Just check out our mjagenda.com website, and the command you need is right there up above the chat. Just copy and paste that, and then change the password part to your password. Change the email part to your email. You'll shortly receive an email back that will contain a link, and you click that link and it'll confirm your account. And be glad to have all you back from all our various incarnations and get all that chat room happening again. Love to be back in the IRC because we've got those private chats that you got the messaging that you can do back and forth. You can put in links and so forth. So glad to have that working. We'll get a pop-up window for that as soon as we can. I'm a little limited because I had to start off on the Libsyn platform. Didn't have enough time to get the independent WordPress developed. So we'll eventually have the WordPress, and when that comes around, there'll be a whole bunch more features. Also, there's going to be a while before we get the subscription features taken care of, the paid subscriptions, that is, the VIP subscriptions. So for right now, the Toker Talk Radio Hour is going to be available for free for everyone as part of this platform. And as far as it updating all of the sites like iTunes and Stitcher and YouTube and TuneIn and all that kind of stuff, that's going to take place all throughout this week. So I will provide you as much information on that as I can as it develops. All right, I wanted to take a look at another story in the news that I found to be quite interesting, and that comes from the state of Nevada, where the Associated Press is reporting that a bill allowing localities to issue permits for marijuana social clubs has passed the Nevada Senate. It's going to go to the Assembly now. The bill passed 12-9. The bill was mainly drafted for the tourism industry in Las Vegas because tourists do not have a safe place to use recreational marijuana. It's also important to note that Nevada has the greatest penalty for public toking as a $600 fine misdemeanor. So yeah, this is something you can get arrested for in Las Vegas and the rest of Nevada. The law takes effect on January 1st, took effect on January 1st, and the dispensaries or the pot shops are coming soon. So soon, tourists are going to be able to purchase an ounce. They've already been able to purchase from the medical dispensaries if they have a medical marijuana card. So the folks at the casino industry are worried that with all these people buying weed, if they don't have lounges, the tourists are going to go bring their weed into the casino properties and be smoking off the corners and in the back alleys and all around the strip. And they don't want to have that going on. So they want to pass this bill. Now, the bill would mandate that the pot lounges in Clark County, the county in which Las Vegas is located, would be on the Sunset Strip. Lawmakers in favor of the bill say the lounges would play an important part in the budget because they would get some tax revenue from this, $70 million coming from the marijuana tax in the state of Nevada. State Senator Tick Segerblom said, quote, "We're trying to get $70 million in tax revenue from them, so let's give them some place to use it." That makes sense. Now, one of the state senators that voted against the bill, Don Gustafson, said he thinks people who voted for marijuana legalization in November did so thinking that people would only be able to consume marijuana in their homes. What do these people think? I mean, they obviously think of us as second-class citizens. They obviously think that what we're doing is so shameful and disgusting and dangerous that it ought to be consumed only at home behind closed doors. The windows shut and the shutters and the shades pulled. Preposterous. Throughout the history of marijuana legalization reform, we have consistently said, treat marijuana like alcohol. Treat marijuana like alcohol. Well, how do we treat alcohol in this country? Hell, you can drink alcohol damn near anywhere. There's bars, there's restaurants, there's movie theaters now where you're drinking beer. You can take it to a lot of parks, will allow you to have picnics and bring a bottle of wine. We've got outdoor festivals where there's beer gardens and people, even shots. You know, we have craft distillers out here in Oregon, and they set up a little booth. You can get a sample of their shots. So treat marijuana like alcohol. Can you imagine them proposing a law to treat alcohol like marijuana? Try and imagine that. If you want to go get a beer, you can't get it at a restaurant or a tavern or a lounge or a grocery store. You can't do that. If you want to get a beer, you have to go to the beer store. It's a specific beer store that has ludicrously high security requirements that card you out the door before you can even get into the beer store. Once you get into the beer store, they'll check your ID again, and then you can go buy some beer. It only costs, $40 a six pack. Just $40 a six pack because there's a huge tax, that's added to your beer at the beer store. When you buy your beer at the beer store, it doesn't come in a regular old can with just a pull tab. If it was a can with a pull tab, a kid could open that. So there's a special kind of child-proof system on this where you have to do some sort of weird combination to be able to get the can open in the first place to drink your $40 six-pack of beer. And by the way, your $40 six-pack of beer doesn't have a colorful label on it, red, white, and blue Budweiser or anything like that. It's a very nondescript, very limited set of fonts that you can use on your can of beer, and you can't put a bunch of colors or cartoon characters on it or anything like that. And you got to put all these warnings on your can of beer. Make sure those are there. And then you can buy your $40 six-pack of beer, and they'll put it in an opaque container so that no one can see it, right? And they're child-proof cans. And then you've got to take that six-pack. Oh, and you can only buy a six-pack. Did I mention that? Yeah, you can only buy a six-pack. Forget about a keg. Forget about a case. No, six-pack. That's all you get. So you can take your six-pack of beer that you bought for $40 at the beer store, but then you got to take it home. You can only drink it at home. That's the only place. And you can't drink it at home. You can't drink a beer on your couch if your kids are around. You can't drink it in front of your kids. You can only drink it in private, by yourself, or with other adults, and as long as no one can see you. Nobody can see you. That's the rule. And we'll let you brew some home beer if you'd like. If you'd like to home brew some beer, that'll be legal in Nevada, but not if you live within 25 miles of a beer store. You can't home brew. Treat alcohol like marijuana. You think that would go very far? It wouldn't even get out of the first reading. Are you kidding me? So forgive me, Senator Gustafson, if you thought people who voted for marijuana only voted for it because the pot smokers would be hidden in their little cannabis closets and never seen or heard from. That's not what the people voted for. And the people were talked to about treat marijuana like alcohol, and that's what we want. That's our agenda. That is the marijuana agenda. Treat us with the same respect you treat beer drinkers. Treat us with the same respect you treat tobacco smokers. Treat us with the same respect you treat people on prescription medications. That's all we're asking for. And that includes a place to smoke marijuana, a lounge, a place for us to gather, to socialize, to exercise our First Amendment rights to assembly, to pursue happiness. I mean, the lounge issue is so much a part of what legalization needs to be. Now, I can understand perhaps an argument that, well, the lounge issue wasn't included in the original legalization. Understandable. You put too much stuff in these bills, too much stuff in these initiatives, everything you put in is something that can get shot down. So the only reason it wasn't included in the first place is because of people like Gustafson who would have huffed and puffed about it and maybe caused it to fail. Each of these issues can be taken up one by one. Let's get legalization passed. Then we can move on and get lounges. Then we can get employment protection. Then we can get all the other things that are attendant to what legalization really should be. And Nevada, you've got to have some sort of cannabis lounge. It's just got to happen. There's another story I want to make a quick mention of, an update from the cannabis. Governor John Hickenlooper met with Attorney General and twice named after Confederate traitors Jefferson Beauregard Sessions. Hickenlooper says that he doesn't think the Attorney General is going to crack down on marijuana. And he tells the cannabis that Jeff Sessions couldn't have been more emphatic about legalization being a bad idea, but also understood that Colorado's marijuana laws are the will of the voters. So this was, he was on MSNBC's Meet the Press Daily, and Hickenlooper talked about meeting with Jeff Sessions in Washington. It was an hour-long meeting that Hickenlooper requested. He was in D.C. for a convention. And he was also one of 4 governors that recently wrote to Jeff Sessions about this, saying, leave the states alone. And he says that Sessions was receptive to keeping the lines of communication open, but also that a policy position appears to be in the works. Said, quote, he's obviously reviewing the Cole memo. They're working on a version of that makes sense for this administration. We'll have to see how far they go. End quote. So he says he doesn't think Sessions will come down on legal marijuana from an enforcement standpoint, and said that, quote, he certainly listened. We in Colorado haven't seen a big spike in consumption. We haven't seen a significant increase in teenage consumption or any of these things. And he certainly was very direct and clearly said they've got a lot of priorities. And at one point he said, well, You haven't seen us cracking down, have you? I said no. End quote. This is good news. Good to hear that the governor of Colorado thinks that Sessions isn't going to be cracking down. We'll just have to see. The Attorney General has given a policy directive that there needs to be a review of the Cole memo, a review of marijuana policies, and an update to how the federal government deals with those policies. If it turns out to be as good as what we've dealt with in the past, as we've dealt with the Obama administration, the hands off, well, then that's good news. Let's hope that's the way it turns out. I still think it's not going to be as good. It may not be as bad as it could be, but I don't think it's smooth sailing ahead. We will see. All right, stay tuned. We'll be back in 2 minutes.
You're listening to the Marijuana Agenda with Russ Belville. You're listening to the Marijuana Agenda with Russ Belville.
New beginner guitars and banjos are often constructed much better than ones built before your time. Why struggle? Get a new instrument or fix the old one. The trusted professionals at the Fingerboard Extension will evaluate your instrument for free. Repairs are priced for people who work for a living. Stop by the Fingerboard Extension downtown Corvallis at 120 Northwest 2nd Street today, or check out its inventory on the web at fingerboardextension.com.
It's time for Cannabis Facts about teen drug use from Robert Platshorn's thesilvertour.org. This message is supported by our donors and Hemp Inc., a public company poised to lead America's hemp revolution at hempinc.com. A recent survey by the U.S. Centers for Disease Control indicates that in states that have legalized medical marijuana, the rate of marijuana consumption among high school students has not increased. In fact, in legal states like Colorado, teen use has actually decreased significantly. It's simply no longer a big deal for teenagers in legal states. This was Cannabis Facts from thesilvertour.org, an educational nonprofit supported by our donors and Hemp Inc., a public company poised to lead America's hemp revolution at hempinc.com.
I'm Russ Belville with the Marijuana Agenda. Join me every 4 weeks for Cultivator's Corner with Jorge Cervantes from marijuanagrowing.com. Learn more at mjagenda.com/about.
Most of us pirates, we go on vacation to North Dakota, you know, because they've got a town called Argosville. What are you smoking there, boy? It's time for Toker Talk Radio, the voice of the marijuana nation. Call in now at 650-LEGAL-MJ.
Welcome back, everybody. 38 after the hour. And in this segment, I want to talk about a couple of my friends out there on the East Coast. Chris Goldstein is pretty much the man who created my career. He began the Normal Daily Audio Stash podcast back in 2006, which I took over in 2008, which has evolved into various incarnations, including Normal Show Live, the Russ Belville Show, and now this show, the Marijuana Agenda. And Chris was among many that were at a party, a pot party in the Philadelphia area that got raided. And there's a couple stories out on Philly.com that deal with the case. First of all, pot activist bail reduced, plans to use trial as cause celeb. This is N.A. Poe, another friend of mine and a good friend of Chris Goldstein's. Both Chris and N.A. Poe, you may recall, are the guys that held the 420 smokeout rallies at the Liberty Bell, at the National Park of the Liberty Bell, and gathered hundreds of people there to smoke pot openly at the Liberty Bell. I don't know if it's hundreds, dozens of people. Smoked pot at the Liberty Bell, and for that, they both got federal charges. And Chris, as a matter of fact, served a 2-year probation, during which he was piss tested and couldn't smoke weed. So whenever you hear the prohibitionists say, oh, the federal government's not concerned with, people that just smoke a little pot. Well, they are if you do it at the Liberty Bell. So Chris is now a federal criminal, got a federal misdemeanor, as is, I think N.A. got convicted. But this latest situation is N.A. Poe and his girlfriend, Rachel Friedman, threw this pot party in a basement, or in a warehouse, was it? It was a warehouse, yes, in Frankfurt. So they had allegedly organized a large marijuana party, charged people $50 each to attend. When they were arrested on April 22nd, this was the weekend of 420, they were arrested. N.A. Poe and Rachel Friedman had their bail set at $250,000. $250,000 bail for each of these folks. And of course, you know how bail works. When you want to get a bail bondsman to bail you out, you got to come up with 10% of that. And that's not the kind of money that Poe or Rachel could come up with, in the snap of a finger. So, $25,000 each, no way. So they had to spend some time in jail. The Court of Common Pleas judge just reduced bail down to $10,000. So now they got to come up with $1,000 each to get out. That's something they can come up with. But the allegations against the two are that they organized this large marijuana party, and it had 22 people there with 50 pounds of marijuana, 100 pounds of edibles, $50,000 in cash, and 4 handguns. The Departments of Licenses and Inspections called to the scene found 20 provisions of fire, building, and business codes being violated. And there was also a request to have Poe required to take piss tests while he was out on bail, and that was denied. It's like, what's the point of that? Like, you want to prove that Poe likes to smoke pot? Come on. Nobody's denying that. So this is now becoming a huge trial or a huge case going on with my friends out there in Philadelphia. And Chris Goldstein has written about it as well. His piece is, the war on marijuana is being waged on those who speak out. And the event is called the Philly Smoke Session, by the way. It's a Chris is referring to it as a smokeasy, like a speakeasy. And he says, he opens by saying, America's renewed war on cannabis consumers had its hands down the front of my pants twice last week. 2 cops searched my genital area during a raid on a 420 weekend marijuana party in Philadelphia. The Smokeasy event was like an indoor farmer's market, not a rave. There was even some rather delicious barbecue chicken. This mellow gathering was the target of a months-long major narcotics investigation and ended with a SWAT team coming through the door. So this is a raid of basically a little pot party going on. And according to Chris, dozens of underground medical marijuana patients, many with serious illnesses, were left terrorized by the raid. It made national news, and it prompted the mayor to call for Pennsylvania to finally legalize cannabis. As the raid was happening in Philly, 3,000 people in Pittsburgh were attending the World Medical Cannabis Conference and Expo, featuring NFL players like Ricky Williams and Marvin Washington, and Senators Mike Fulmer and Dalen Leach. Now, there were no arrests there, but there were certainly people enjoying some cannabis at some of the after parties. After the Philly raid, the Pennsylvania Department of Health released a list of hundreds of straight-laced applicants competing for licenses to sell legal medicinal hash oil. Even some cops are applying for these licenses, including Philadelphia Police Department K-9 Unit Captain Mark Everett. The K-9 cops are even signing up to make their money in the green rush there in Philadelphia. So you got the cops busting the Smoke Easy party that's currently serving the underground medical marijuana patients. And they want to apply to the licenses to be the above ground sellers of those licenses. It just goes to show you again that this is not a war on drugs. This is a war between drugs. This is a war about who makes the money selling the drugs. And to have the state and the cops on the one hand busting these people, and then on the other hand applying for the licenses to sell to those people, it just reeks. It's just so ridiculous. I feel for Chris. You know, he's been a longtime activist, and of course Poe as well. And Chris continues to write, I've been briefly detained by federal, state, and municipal authorities in the process of demonstrating for different causes over the years. Still, the Philadelphia Police Department's narcotics unit raid of the Philly smoke session on April 22nd was the most invasive encounter I've ever had with a cop. For more than an hour, I had relaxed inside the party. Did I smoke marijuana? Absolutely. People freely shared some gorgeous cannabis. But I also smoked tobacco, which is rather taboo in the green crowd, so I was standing outside in front of the warehouse next to 2 hired security guards and having a cigarette when the initial raid was made on the party just before 8 p.m. I saw 4 white men with scruffy beards and longish hair walking abreast and with a purpose. They looked out of place like hillbillies in North Philly. For a split second, I thought we were being mugged. They yelled, "Get the fuck up against the wall." I asked who they were. "We have badges. Who the fuck do you think we are?" By then, one of the hillbillies had quickly turned me to face against a brick wall. My hands were up and legs spread. I nodded at the incredibly calm security guard next to me and said, "They have badges too." They said, "We're the fucking police." At that moment, the truth was clear as dozens of police vehicles swooped in and what seemed like an army of cops followed a SWAT unit through the front door. I heard plenty of shouting, but did not witness anything inside after that. But this is the raid, and you can read all about this. Talks about how one of the cops quickly pushed his hands in each pocket, then he grabbed the waist of my jeans, jerked them forward, and put his right hand down my boxers. He may have been wearing mechanic's gloves. Ghostbuster's hand, that's what he's calling the cop, was on my genitals for a split second, but it was more than simply passing along. My zipper was left open afterwards. This happens thousands of times a day to women and men across America on the premise of marijuana possession, but in all my years of police interaction, it was a first for me. The second cop's hand down my pants during the raid didn't feel like the TSA. The intention felt like calculated intimidation. Calculated intimidation. Exactly. And you have to wonder if during this investigation they find out that, oh, who's running this pot party? Oh, it's these outspoken activists. If that had any bearing on deciding to do this raid and the way in which they did the raid. Run around in the chat rooms asking, how much did the raid cost? Well, it cost plenty. That's for sure. If you're doing a 4 months long narcotics investigation, it cost plenty. Let's just get this legal. And as we move forward with legalization, let's make sure that our people are the ones that benefit from it. That we come up with ways to set up the rules, the licensing, the regulations, so that it's our people that are benefiting, not the canine cops applying for licenses, not the people in the pharmaceutical industry benefiting from it. And if you want that to happen, the fight now, as is the theme of this show, one plant, one people, one fight, one love. The fight now is for personal cannabis legalization. The only thing that's going to get us from here to being able to grow and use cannabis, whole plant cannabis, any way we like, to smoke it if we like, that fight now lies in marijuana legalization for adult use. It doesn't lie in medical cannabis. It doesn't lie in industrial hemp, not over there in CBD. That's not to say those things aren't worth fighting for and that those things aren't subjects that we should support. But we should understand they are separate subjects. What gets us to legalization now is legalization and talking about legalization. We're at a time now where majorities are well on our side, over 60% now. It's time to stop tiptoeing around. What can we get away with that won't scare them about legalization? What can we sacrifice? What can we put aside that'll get the most votes? Because now I believe we can get the votes for marijuana legalization with home grow. We did it in Oregon in an off-year election. And there were many forces, many funders that were pushing hard for us to eliminate home grow for legalization. And we stood on principle. We stood on principle and said we would not move forward without home grow for the people. It's not as much as I'd like. We only have 4 plants home grow. But you got to have home grow. We've got to have legalization. That's the only way we get access to whole plant marijuana. All right, we got to take a break. And when we come back, we'll close up shop here at the Marijuana Agenda.
You're listening to the Marijuana Agenda with Russ Belville. The Marijuana Agenda, like the alcohol agenda. But a lot safer.
Hey everybody, it's Russ Belville from the Marijuana Agenda, inviting you to be like me and get your ink done at Lucky Horseshoe Tattoo, Fort Worth's most female-friendly, clean, sterile, awesome tattoo shop. Thomas and his crew are true artists who can design you a custom piece or use a design you bring in. Lucky Horseshoe also offers all styles of tattooing as well as piercings and all-around fun. In the DFW area, stop by Lucky Horseshoe Tattoo and tell them Radical Russ sent you. Trust me, it'll feel awesome.
Hey, this is Willie Nelson for Normal. And I smoke pot and I like it a lot. I learned a long time ago that marijuana is a lot safer than alcohol. There's nothing wrong with the responsible use of marijuana by adults. It's time we stopped arresting and started respecting those who smoke marijuana responsibly. To learn what you can do to help, contact NORML at norml.org or call toll-free 888-67-NORMAL.
I'm Russ Belville from the Marijuana Agenda. Join me every 4 weeks for the Freedom Leaf Preview with Steve Bloom from Freedom Leaf Magazine. Learn more at mjagenda.com/about.
Hello, Mr. Man. Hi. I'm working. I'm sorry. No food till this is done. It's time for Toker Talk Radio, the voice of the marijuana nation. Call in now at 650-LEGAL-MJ.
Welcome back, everybody. 53 after the hour. Now as we close up shop here at Delta 9 Studios on the premiere of the Marijuana Agenda. Big thanks again go out to Matt Lee, who helped with the production of a lot of the audio elements. And coming up on tomorrow's show, we are in our first week rotation here on the Marijuana Agenda. And if you check out our website, mjagenda.com/about, you can see the regular rotation. You'll get to know which segments will be on which days. We're currently in Week 1, which we're calling the Western rotation because it contains the Western regional shows. But on tomorrow's show, you'll hear a segment called A Sensible Future from Students for Sensible Drug Policy. I spoke with one of their executive director, Betty Aldworth, and also spoke with Stacia Kostner, their deputy director. My interview with Stacia will play on tomorrow's Sensible Future. And then in the second half hour, we'll go into the Celebrity Marijuana Zone with Steve Bloom from Celeb Stoner, giving us an update on the latest stories of celebrities and marijuana. That's coming up on the Marijuana Agenda tomorrow, Tuesday, at 3 p.m. Pacific Time. All right. So now that we are closing up shop here, I had one last story having to do with the nation of Canada, which we all know is moving forward with marijuana legalization. They should have legal marijuana by summer of 2018, June or July 1st, 2018. This is going to cause a problem for Canadians who want to cross the border, or for that matter, Americans who visit Canada and then want to come back. But the Canadians themselves have the biggest problem here, because at the U.S. border, U.S. Customs may ask people if they've ever used marijuana. And if you answer yes to that question, you can be barred from entering the United States. Now, this is going to set up a situation where Canadians will be living in a country where it's perfectly legal for them to smoke pot. But if they answer that question truthfully, they're stuck in their country. They can't enter the United States. This has happened to a few people that I've heard from already who were Canadians who had come across to the United States to visit Colorado or Oregon or Washington State, where they could legally smoke pot, then returned home to Canada, and then the next time they wanted to come to the United States, answered the question truthfully that they'd smoked pot legally, and they couldn't come back to the United States. It's an absurdity where someone could be in British Columbia, Vancouver, BC, in summer of 2018, it'll be legal. Someone could legally smoke pot in Vancouver, BC. Someone could legally smoke pot across the border in Washington State. But trying to cross that border, if you admit you did something that's legal on both sides of that border, you can't cross that border. That's how absurd prohibition has become. So there are some suggestions. And one suggestion here is that a person don't answer the question. This was, guy's name is Saunders. I'm trying to find his full name. It's up higher in the story. Where'd it go? Saunders. Len Saunders, who's an immigration attorney from Blaine, Washington, says he expects his business to boom. Saunders said, let's change the question. What if they asked you about your sex life? Would you be so forthcoming? If you've smoked in the past, it's nobody's business. If you don't answer the question, the worst thing they can do is deny you entry. But if you answer that question and say yes, you're inadmissible for life. It's a lifetime ban. End quote. So yes, Canadian listeners, if you're coming to the United States and they ask you if you've ever smoked marijuana, just say you refuse to answer the question. I'm sorry, I refuse to answer that question. And they may not let you cross the border, but at least you'll get another shot at it. You answer yes, and you're barred for life? This is insane. And this is something the United States is going to have to adjust to. Problem is, of course, we're dealing with the Trump administration, which does not seem too friendly upon that idea. It doesn't seem likely that they'd be wanting to be seen as approving of marijuana use. I mean, it could be as simple as an executive order, a directive to not answer that question. But according to the U.S. law, it's a crime of moral turpitude when it comes to your entering if you'd smoked pot in the past. A crime of moral turpitude. Shows you again that it's just a culture war. It's always been a culture war. There's nothing about marijuana smoking that leads to moral turpitude. Folks, that's all the time we got for today. Time flies when you legalize. Thanks for joining us here on the new show, The Marijuana
Follow
Agenda.
MJ Agenda on Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram, YouTube, and SoundCloud. And follow MJ Agenda Show on Twitter. Learn more at mjagenda.com.
Berman here at Delta 9 Studios. I'm Radical Russ. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, take care of each other, tokers.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth. Hey!